Welcome to Play Nice, Play Fair.
All right, welcome everyone. We're really excited you could join us today to learn more about how we're using technology, things like machine learning and smarter social system to empower you, the players, to experience a play nice, play fair experience in our games. So first, let me introduce myself as well as my fellow panelists. My name is Daugherty. I lead the Player Behavior Insights team here at Blizzard, as well as being Blizzard's steering committee member for the Fair Play Alliance. Some of you may know about this organization, but it's over 100 gaming and entertainment companies who've come together to committing to drive positive change in online environments. I'm also joined by Eileen Payne, who is our Senior Director of Global Customer Service Operations, and she's leading our player behavior initiatives for customer service and product support. We're also joined by Scott Mercer, who is a Principal Designer and one of the leaders of player behavior initiatives for Overwatch team. We're also joined by Sam Park, who is a Senior Producer and one of the leaders of player behavior initiatives for Heroes of the Storm. And of course, last but certainly not least, J. Allen Brack, obviously President of Blizzard Entertainment. So thank you all so much for joining us, both out there in the audience as well as at home watching on the virtual ticket. Play nice, play fair really means a lot to us at Blizzard. I mean, it's literally written in stone and iron in our courtyard at the Orc statue. But beyond that, we are all passionate gamers at Blizzard. And it's not just a core value. It's something we hold very near and dear to our hearts. Blizzard has traditionally kept a lot of the details around these player behavior systems behind the scenes. But with our involvement in the Fair Play Alliance, we wanted to pull back that curtain a little bit and share with you guys some of the really amazing things we've been doing over the last couple of years. Today, we want to first talk a little bit about each of our roles, why this topic inspires us, some of the history around these efforts, share some of the things that we've been doing in the last year, both player-facing and behind the scenes, as well as how they're working, and then wrapping it up at the end with some of the things we've got planned for the future. So without further ado, let's dive in. Jay, first question's for you. Why don't you just tell us what Play Nice, Play Fair means to you and to Blizzard?
You know, I think all of us are players of our games, and so this is a topic that's near and dear to us. You know, like Jared said, it's not only one of our core values, but it's something that we feel like is just right for all of our products because we all experience a lot of the same things that our players do. You know, Mike's vision for, you know, kind of a collaborative and inclusive culture that is kind of genuine and nice to each other has really influenced a lot of us here. We really want everyone to have just the most positive experience that they can, which is sort of free from harassment and free from abuse, no matter who is playing and what kind of their experience it is. You know, we don't really want to be super heavy-handed. You know, a lot of us have worked on World of Warcraft and other games over the years and experimented with different types of penalty systems. But it is important to kind of keep moving forward and keep taking steps to make great decisions on how to keep the gaming experiences the best and most positive they can be. I'm super proud of the work that we've done over the years and a lot of the work that this group has kind of done. They really represent a lot of the various disciplines that have been involved in the various games across all of our efforts in this area. And we've invested a lot of time and energy into different types of systems in recent years. And, you know, really happy to be here to talk with you about what those efforts are and what they've led to.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate your support, Jay. And I've actually got a story for you guys to kind of highlight how much this means to Jay, and I hope you're okay with me telling this. But there was this big meeting, I don't know, probably about a year ago at this point, where we were all up in the big Blizzard boardroom presenting to the leaders of the company. Me and my team were presenting our plan for how we can use technology, things like machine learning, to more empower our player communities to fight and prevent these disruptive behaviors. And I remember I was wrapping up the presentation, looking around the room, seeing very encouraging nods and smiles, but, you know, very controlled. And then I remember as I was panning the room, I got to Jay, and Jay, being the big personality that he is, just emphatically pretended to pull out his wallet, open it up, take money out, and put it on the table. So there was no question that we had Jay's support on this effort. So thank you so much for that, Jay.
We have a lot of big meetings at Blizzard, and you know, this is one that I think is, you know, like I said, for any of us who have spent time in online communities and online games, you know, you can clearly see the value of spending time and energy on making your gaming experience better. And that's what Jared and his team are really doing.
So before we can talk too much about what we're doing today, I think it's important to revisit the history and talk a little bit about how we got here. I'm not sure if everyone out there in our player communities knows this, but customer service is actually one of our big drivers of Play Nice, Play Fair here at Blizzard. And Eileen has been a huge part of these efforts and is a huge supporter of these and has really helped us get to the next level. Maybe we can start by having you share what Play Nice, Play Fair means to you, as well as why these efforts are so important.
Sure. So historically, customer service really has been pretty reliant on player reports to enable us to address disruptive behaviors in games. And we have built up a fair degree of sophistication and automation over the years, but that does prove challenging to scale, and also it's hard to ensure protection for the small number of players who are sometimes unfairly targeted by others. We found we were having similar conversations about these challenges with people like Sam and Scott from the other various game teams. And we all figured that there must be opportunities to improve our approach and our systems using the technologies like machine learning that Jared mentioned, and also data analysis of player behaviors after a penalization. So we started asking if there was more that we could achieve by utilizing analytics to reduce disruptive behaviors.
Yeah, and so one of the teams that they started talking to was us over in Global Insights, which is an analytics and data products organization within Blizzard. And let me tell you, we really loved that question. We ran with it, and it quickly became a corner of the desk passion project for a few of us between Global Insights, customer service, as well as the game teams. My team, Player Behavior Insights, was eventually formed to work on centralizing these efforts into one center of excellence. And let me tell you, we quickly found tons of support and passion across the entire company, and these efforts are now truly Blizzard-wide. So our goals as a team are to develop these machine learning systems that help empower your accurate player reports. We also provide data and design input for social features, things like Overwatch's endorsement system. These help drive positive community-wide change. And we get together with all the game teams to try different things, learn what works, what doesn't work, and how we can share that knowledge to best across the company to learn and grow together. At the end of the day, we really want to ensure that you, the players, have the tools you need to fight these disruptive behaviors and just have more fun.
So we're talking a lot about disruptive behaviors and impact on playing experience. Maybe it's time to address the elec in the room, why we aren't calling these behaviors toxic or using the term toxicity.
Yes, I knew this question was coming. Toxicity is certainly a very catchy word. You know, we see it in the gaming media and on social media. And we personally don't like it because we don't feel that it's very accurate. It's an ambiguous and often charged term that can mean very different things to different people. And so that makes it really difficult to use in any sort of serious discussion around the topic. And Eileen, I think you've actually got some really good stats to back that up, right?
Yeah, most people who are reported are really normal players just like you and me. They've reacted poorly to a particular set of circumstances, or they're having a really bad day. And when we look at the player reports and observe player behaviors, we can see that actually only about 5% of players that are being reported are what we would consider to be consistently disruptive to the game. So we keep that in mind.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And we've seen that the negative connotation a word like toxicity can carry actually hurts efforts to connect with that other 95% of players who've been penalized, because it just doesn't match with how they see themselves or their behavior when you look at it over a long period of time. So we like the term disruptive behavior better because it's very easy to define as those behaviors that harm the gameplay experience for others. And again, in some cases, this can certainly be premeditated. You know, things like immediately trolling by jumping off the map over and over again in a game of Overwatch, or just being, immediately abusive to your teammates when you join a match. But the vast majority of the time, we see that it is just people having a bad day or reacting poorly to circumstances. So we want to make sure that we reflect that. So we've talked a little bit about the more central teams. How about we get Sam and Scott's perspective from a game team? Maybe we can start with you, Sam. What does play nice, play fair mean to you and to the Heroes team?
Sure. So the Heroes team has looked at disruptive behavior, and we found that it takes away from having a fun and engaging experience. We want people to be excited when they approach Heroes, and we want them to have competitive matches. Heroes is really at its apex when people are working together and together with strategy, whether it's team fighting or flanking the enemy or doing a good rotation. magic happens when they're working at this way. Some of my favorite moments is having an Artanis swap into a Nazwal and watching them squirm and then die. Not sure if I should be so excited about that, but we found that people who participate in disruptive behavior takes away from that experience. They could be even on your team as you're winning, and it kind of still feels bad after that. So we knew this was an area that we wanted to take on and improve.
Scott, same question for you. What does Play Nice, Play Fair mean to you and to the Overwatch team?
Sure. So Overwatch is a game. It's about amazing, diverse heroes that are working together as a team to make Earth a better place for everyone. And we see the world of Overwatch as something that's bright, positive, and really inspirational. And the entire development team has been in awe at the positive stories that we've seen from Overwatch affecting players around the world. It was just early this year, the Overwatch community came together and raised over $12.7 million to fight breast cancer with our partners at BCRF. So we read stories on our forums, or we see it on social media from players who experience disruptive behavior while playing Overwatch, or we see it firsthand when we're playing Overwatch. It's really super concerning to us. So we asked the same kind of question that you hear others asking up here. Hey, are we doing enough to make playing Overwatch a more fun and engaging experience? And the answer is we could absolutely do more. So we too started a small focused team working on these kind of behaviors specifically within Overwatch. So we teamed up with Jared, we teamed up with customer service, the researchers and data scientists, and there's other groups across Blizzard who are really jazzed to help us work through this issue. And really the first thing we came together, we started talking about like, hey, what's like the really big problem? And the first thing is that people didn't actually think reporting worked. It's a crazy thing to think about, but it's really true. And when people don't think reporting works, then they don't actually bother to actually create reports themselves. They don't go through and say like, I should report this guy, because they just don't think anything happens with it. So for that, if that doesn't work, like if the entire system just kind of falls apart on us. So we reviewed how reports translate into actions against disruptive players and decided to make them, first off, way more aggressive. And then alongside the aggressive actions, such as suspensions and silences, we also added what we think is a really important new warning action. So a lot of our research has shown that it's clear that people don't even realize a lot of times that they're being disruptive when they play. And we put this warning in to give those players the opportunity to change their behavior for the better, and that's our real goal with these systems. Now, there's some players who don't want to change their disruptive behavior, they just want to see the world burn, and for the worst of the worst, we decided to ban them all. And we took away those players from being able to play Overwatch, but just so you understand, these people had hundreds of reports over a lifetime and been actioned multiple times in the past. And then there was another group like right below that weren't quite so bad, maybe didn't deserve full bans, we gave them suspensions. But this kind of mass action proved actually really important because what we've seen is these small number of players were actually responsible for a huge volume of all the bad behavior that players were seeing. So then alongside all this, like these actions to discourage and mitigate this disruptive player behavior, then we also started looking at ways to incentivize more positive player interactions.
Yeah, and we'll get to that a little bit more. And so now that we've shared some of our roles and the history around these efforts, as well as what Play Nice, Play Fair really means to us, let's talk in more detail about some of the specific things that we're doing right now. The first thing I'd actually like to talk about is a little bit more around the social features. So Blizzard has used these social features to help players find the right experiences for them and to avoid the sorts of disruptive behaviors that can happen when you're put into a situation with another player where maybe your goals aren't exactly aligned. As well as giving you ways that you can reward, remember, and continue playing with players that you've had a really positive and good experience with. WoW is actually a great example of this. And I think out of everyone up here, Eileen plays the most WoW, right?
That isn't accurate. No? That's not accurate. No one thinks that's true. But she does play. She does play a lot, but the most,
probably not
I
quite
don't think
as much as someone else.
That's not
maybe.
true.
Well, in any case, the question's for Eileen. So.
Yes, no, I guess on that topic, the recent development of WoW communities is actually a really good example of how we're working to enhance positive social experiences. Just like your Battle.net groups, the WoW communities allows players to be part of multiple communities within the game. And the intention, of course, is to enable folks to chat and interact with different groups for different experiences and activities that you enjoy. You know, outside of your guild group, you likely have a bunch of work friends you run dungeons or raid with, or a separate group of PvP friends, and so on. So communities has really allowed players to have fun in different ways, in different group spaces in the game, and it's allowing players of differing skill levels to interact outside of their core or main game experience. You know, if you're a less skilled player, you run far less risk of being yelled at for standing in stuff if the people you're with aren't on their main raid night, right? But it's their day for playing with less skilled or more casual friends. So you can expect to see some further features in the coming months. That'll include the ability to edit rather than having to delete your chats. You'll be able to modify your notes. And we'll also be adding the community groups to the WoW Companion app. So all of that's going to help to enhance this experience even further.
That's great. Scott, what about you for Overwatch? What are some of the ways that you've seen social systems change the way players play and interact?
Yeah, so just earlier this year, we added the endorsement system. And this gives players the ability to celebrate and thank their fellow players for making their experiences online better. In discussions with my fellow designer, Jeremy Crick, we noted that we already do a lot of things to reward like great hero play. You know, we've got statistic-driven systems like medals, we've got those cards that show up at the end of the round that you can vote on. But what we really want to do is celebrate more positive behavior that isn't quite so easily quantified. So we quickly identified 3 categories that we really wanted to celebrate. So if someone helps the team through great shot calling, that's something we want to celebrate. A great shot caller will definitely improve your results in the game and make for a better play experience. If your teammates are being unselfish, if they work well with others, if they're really suggestive to hey, they switched heroes when it was really an awesome thing to do, we all want to encourage that kind of behavior. And then as a competitive team shooter, good sportsmanship and manners while playing Overwatch is also something that's very important. In fact, it's so important, we actually give the opposing team the opportunity to endorse someone for good sportsmanship. And then we also added another system alongside endorsement at the same time, and that's our Looking for Group, or LFG system. Now, by using LFG, you can create teams of players that share a common goal or focus. You can have discussions before you actually start the game amongst your team, saying hey, what's our composition going to look like? What kind of strategies are we going to use? What role should we all play? And by playing with people you know, even if it's just these people you just met in LFG, the chances that you have positive interactions with them increase pretty radically. Because now you're part of a team that's trying to succeed and have fun.
Yeah, those are just some of the great examples of how these smarter social systems can lead to more fun and positive experiences among our player communities. So to change topics just a little bit, I'd like to now talk about how the player reporting systems work a little bit and how we've been making them better. Sam, I know Heroes of the Storm has been working and putting a ton of effort towards this over the last year. Can you share some of that?
Yeah. So we've really focused, our strike team has focused on improving things from end to end. How we identify players that are participating in disruptive behavior. We incorporated what the player behavior insights team had done with chat verification and really validating the player reports that were coming in. How we notify players of how we appreciate their reporting. We had incorporated some of the thank you emails, but we're really looking at the endorsement system and the thank you in-game system that Overwatch has. We're excited to see what you guys do and how we might apply it to heroes. Are we applying this correct penalty to the disruptive behavior that's happening? We've experimented with silences, but are there other behavior or actions that we could take that would reduce repeated offenses? Is the appeal system fair from end to end? Is there a feedback loop? We found that sometimes people are innocent of the actions we give. It feels really bad, and we go back and make sure that, hey, what were the methods that went wrong there? How can we improve those things? And finally, do players trust the system? We've worked with Jared's team to implement player surveys, so now we have a baseline on how we're doing, and as we bring improvements in, we'll see those come across. So we hear the community's feedback. It's an iterative process, but we are committed to quality. So please continue to share your feedback through the report systems and post on the forums, and we'll hear it.
So one point I'd actually like to talk about is some of the machine learning systems. And I think these are really important because they can be far more effective at identifying these abusive behaviors, much more so than a simple profanity filter. So I don't want this to be like a technical talk, but for those of you out there who don't know maybe how machine learning works, it works by creating a complex algorithm that a computer can use to look at hundreds or thousands or even hundreds of thousands of examples and their correct answers to basically learn by experience and then apply that experience to new problems in the same space, learning to basically solve these problems through that example that we provide for them. So we're using a form of machine learning that's actually called deep neural nets. And this is really important because in our case, language can be really complicated. Certain four-letter words can be used in very positive ways, but also in very negative ways to abuse or harass other players. And so it's really important for us to use this type of machine learning so that we can look at an entire conversation and look at the context and figure out if it's the case where it is being used in celebration and maybe that's okay, or the situation where it's being used to abuse or harass another player. And so training these systems was a huge effort at Blizzard that was spearheaded by our amazing game masters and publishing team members, because they understood not only Blizzard's culture and what's important to us, but the culture of our communities and understanding, like what's funny, what's not funny, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And Eileen was actually a huge driver of these efforts. Can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Sure. I guess we've invested a significant amount of brain power and expertise over the last year or so in the form of our game masters and our publishing team members globally. They've been making tremendous effort to train these systems and to continue to improve the algorithms. And it's actually in 10 different languages. We have people of 32 different nationalities working in our organization globally. And they're all members of the gaming community too. They understand the different context and connotations of terms in different languages and cultures. And that understanding has proved extremely beneficial to us, because while it took a fair while to fully train the algorithm, and it's a continuing process, it really has given us the ability to validate those player reports with machine learning. And it's meant that we've been able to address disruptive behaviors faster and more accurately. In turn, that also gives much stronger protections for innocent players who are being targeted by false reports, because we're now much more quickly able to identify those before there's a danger of the player actually being penalized. I guess that said, we don't really consider any process to be absolutely perfect, and that's why we continue to have a real live game master in the loop for appeals. But we really have seen huge increases in the ability to correctly assess reports on behavior with our current technical solutions. We're seeing that the verified penalties are about 30 times more accurate than those that are based simply on the fact of a report having been made. And even more importantly, they're actually 8 times more effective at driving reformed behavior in games. So that's really significant for us. And that's resulted in a significant ripple effect, which we're already seeing as reducing the amount of disruptive behaviors that players experience.
Yeah, so on the topic of false reports, some of you may remember a popular Heroes streamer named Grubby, and an instance where he was penalized because there were some players that were abusing the reporting system. If you don't know Grubby, he's one of the nicest, most zen people. And so it felt really bad. So while the vast majority of our players wouldn't experience something like this because it was a targeted attack, the previous system was heavily influenced based on the number of reports. And so because of that coordinated attack, that made that situation happen. This was already a situation we were working to improve, but that really highlighted, hey, this is something we should take on. So since then, we've added machine verification, as well as other behind-the-scenes systems to mitigate this from happening again. I also want to dispel another rumor that I've heard before. Some people say, hey, if I play more, I'm more likely to get penalized, provided that's really not true, provided you're not disruptive. I play with my Blizzard and non-Blizzard friends, and we have thousands of games between us, and that's something that we really don't worry about. In addition, we're continuing to incorporate further machine learning verification to harden the system against these type of reports and abuse. We're also looking at ways to more strongly address players who are abusing the system for reporting. We'll continue to make these improvements, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, these better player protections against false report was definitely one of the key secondary benefits of implementing this technology. But there was another one as well, and that actually helps with the appeals process. Eileen, can you maybe tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I guess we sometimes hear from players who've been penalised and who've appealed against that penalty, that they feel that their voice wasn't heard and that they simply received a confirmation of the penalty, leading them to wonder if it's just an automated process and that there's no hope of successful appeal. But truly there is really no evil overlord bot in the sky spewing out these auto responses to appeals.
Not yet.
Right now, Game Masters do in fact review all of them. And what they'll typically do is check game and chat logs and details about reports about the players before they decide whether to uphold or overturn the penalty. But we have historically been cautious in our approach to detailing the specific wording or the incident in replies to appeals. And we usually do simply reiterate the general reason why and that the penalty has been upheld. For example, we might say in a reply to an appeal that we've had reports of harassment but not specify the details. And that is really, this approach just really protects the privacy of individuals, which is clearly important. But I guess that said, we do understand the frustration that someone feels if he genuinely had no idea what they said or did to disrupt or offend in game. So we do have a lot of efforts afoot right now to enable us to be more transparent on the what as well as the why, to help players understand better how to engage more positively with each other. And using our technology and the machine learning has really helped us to identify those specific instances. And in the future, we're going to make sure that they will be surfaced for the Game Masters on appeals so that the players can know exactly what they did and how to change their behavior to avoid further penalties.
Yeah, that's actually a great point about how providing additional information to players has had actually really positive effects. And I know Overwatch has also been experimenting with features that give more feedback to players. Maybe you can share a bit more information about those, Scott.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about technology and so forth, but one of the most powerful tools we've added is actually pretty simple. Whenever you report someone for disruptive behavior in Overwatch, and if that player is then actioned, we thank you for your help. So when we first implemented this, we did it with an email, and we got a lot of positive feedback, but not a lot of people even read those emails, so we missed out on the good news. But then we changed those messages to actually appearing inside Overwatch, and the reaction has been amazing. People now see that the reports matter and that they've helped their community. And getting a thank you message became something to celebrate. We'd see people post on social media. It's like, hey, I got this awesome thank you message. This is great. So we saw a huge positive change in the number of accurate reports, which then, combined with the technology like machine learning, we could then identify these players who are actually being disruptive way faster. So all of this adds up to some really significant changes in our player communities. And just over the course of 1 year, we've seen trust in our systems increase by over 170%, which is really quite amazing. And even more importantly, the number of matches that you experience with disruptive behavior has dropped by 40% globally over the past year. And we've certainly noticed that difference when we play Overwatch. We hope everyone else is also noticing this as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So Overwatch has definitely been one of our earliest partners in implementing a lot of these, player-facing social systems, in-game feedback messages, as well as behind-the-scenes technology like these machine learning systems. And they've certainly seen the impact. Other Blizzard games are at different points in implementing some of these features, but the ones that have are already starting to see similar trends with these numbers. So we're really excited about that. We're going to continue to monitor that and look at it and share more information about those when the time is right. So I think that covers most of what we're currently doing. Let's talk a bit about what's coming next. Why don't we just go around everyone up here, starting with you, Jay.
I think for me, I'm really proud of what we've accomplished so far as a group. This is something that, like I said at the beginning, is really important because we are all players of the games. You are all players of the games, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And so we know this is a passionate topic for you. There's not a single silver bullet or thing that we're going to be able to do to sort of eliminate these harassing behaviors. So our goal is just to kind of add different kinds of things and improve them over time and just continue to iterate and make things great. Jared's team, the Behavior Insights team, is sort of kind of leading those efforts for us. It's not, like I said, it's not like this perfect goal to eliminate all of the different kind of things that you have. We're just going to continue to iterate on it, continue to make better, continue to work on the reporting system, and continue to improve on and add different social tools that kind of people can add. And so eventually everyone has just a great, awesome, epic experience in all of our games. That's why we kind of are spending as much time and energy on these kind of different things. Is we really want the communities to be able to help grow themselves and continue to be great. For me, for all of us who kind of participate in games and have had harassing experiences, that's kind of why we're doing this, right? We've all had that negative experience, and we all just want to do everything we can to make them go away.
Yeah, so for us, we found that while chat can kind of be disruptive to your gameplay, there's another area in Heroes that makes gameplay sour. So we call it gameplay sabotage, and we've been experimenting and finding ways of people who are griefing or throwing, or some of you have been unfortunate enough to encounter some Leorics that are just throwing themselves and feeding against the core. That really gets at us. So it's really a bad situation and something that we wanted to go after. However, situations like the Leoric are blatant, right? They're just throwing, feeding. But how many of you have had a bad game or a bad day or an off-meta pick? And sometimes it's not so cut and dry and easy to select that, right? So we want to be really careful and selective how we're going about this. My kids love playing the game. They're not very good at it. I'm always saying, please don't ban my kids to the group. So we're regularly refining this. We're going to incorporate machine learning as it comes online in this area, and we'll continue to improve.
Yeah, on Overwatch, we're also working, we're talking to Sam, learning like all the lessons from Heroes. We're working with Jared's team. And we're also trying to figure out, are there ways that we can better detect gameplay sabotage within Overwatch? And that includes things like intentionally dying, like he was talking about in Heroes, being AFK, those mysterious people that just don't do anything. There's also people that like use hero abilities in ways that hurt your own team. I think we've all run into someone who really likes putting up a May wall right at spawn when the game starts. So, and then also I think our LFG and endorsement systems have been really successful, but we've gotten a lot of feedback from that from players and across social media, and we're also going to look at ways to improve those. They've been successful, and we want to keep on working on that. And then I also want to give a final shout out to our global insights and our hacks teams for helping us maintain the competitive integrity of Overwatch. We've suspended and banned thousands of players for actions such as hacking, boosting, win trading, intentionally losing. I mean, these people are silent heroes. They work behind the scenes, and they really like help keep our games free of like the worst of the worst in terms of gameplay sabotage. And these teams are like constantly working behind the scenes. They're working on new technology. We're working with them across Blizzard. Each game team works with the hacks team really extensively to try to help us better detect this kind of behavior.
Yeah, and I guess in customer service, we have systems in place already. We're really committed to continuing to improve them to help the overall player experience. We're looking at more ways to inform players that their behavior is impacting or concerning other players. And a little earlier, Scott mentioned that we implemented that warning system in Overwatch that alerts players when they log in if there's been a pattern of reports about them in their last play sessions that hadn't quite resulted in penalization. And that's because we want to give them the opportunity to play nice this time round. Plus, we're looking at ways to be more transparent, to give more detailed examples of what behaviors cause the penalty, because often a player will appeal just simply to understand that. So again, in Overwatch, the notification to a player that they've been penalized due to multiple reports of abusive chat, for instance, is an example of a step we've already taken in that direction. So for the future, we want to continue our efforts to harness those feedback systems to really help steer players back to the positive experiences that are very important to all of us.
Yeah, and then from a player behavior insights perspective, we've been working very closely with Sam, Scott, and Eileen to learn from and empower all of these future game efforts, with technology, things like machine learning, looking for those opportunities to apply those technologies and systems, and then expand those to other games so all of Blizzard gets the benefits of that work and those learnings. There's a lot going on behind the scenes right now, all across Blizzard in this area, and like Jay said, this is a huge priority for us here at Blizzard, so we're really excited to be working on it. On the specific report verification side, we've also been looking at ways that we can better identify instances of targeted harassment and hate speech so that we can potentially treat those a little differently than someone just getting a little too heated at a teammate in a match of Overwatch. Because we know that's really bad. Like, that feels really bad. We don't want anyone to be experiencing stuff like that in our games. And we know we've seen there's some very simple bag-of-word approaches out there in other games and other industries that are based on lists of words and their common misspellings. And we've seen some other games that have implemented systems like this, but we've seen ways that those have been circumvented and have been abused to punish players who are potentially innocent. And we think that there's an opportunity there where we can do much better with machine learning. Another thing is that we want all games to be inclusive places that everyone can connect and play and enjoy their experiences, not just Blizzard games. So to support this, we've committed to sharing our results and learnings with organizations like the Fair Play Alliance, as well as learning as much as we can from the other member organizations, because this is a problem that is much bigger than just any one company. So we're really excited about those efforts and what we can learn and share with the rest of the industry. So I know we're nearing the end of our time. So I wanted to just once again thank everyone out there, both in the audience here as well as at home on the virtual ticket, for joining us to learn more about how we're using this technology and social features to empower you, the Blizzard players, to just have the best and most fun experiences ever. You all tuned in because this is super important to you. And what you're probably wondering is, what is the biggest thing that we can do as players to help drive these efforts forward and help us fight these disruptive behaviors? And the answer here is simple. Keep making those reports when you see these disruptive behaviors. A lot of the times, and again, this is somewhat fortunate, a lot of these behaviors are pretty uncommon. But that makes our job really hard because we are looking for basically needles in a haystack. So when you make those reports, it gives us really valuable data towards finding these behaviors and training our technology and our systems to identify and prevent these things in the future. So I promise you, because I see the data, all your reports really do matter. So please keep putting those in. So I think that's all we've got. Do you have any closing thoughts for us, Jay?
I think I've kind of reiterated that this is a really important issue to me. I think, but we all want everyone to have just an awesome experience when they're playing games. That's a place that's sort of free from abuse, free from harassment, free from other kind of disruptive behaviors. And I really want all of the games that we have to be empowered with this technology to allow this kind of effective policing to kind of work. We're going to continue to invest in the tech that Jared and his team have kind of worked on. We're going to continue to empower the things that you guys need in order to help make your gaming communities the best they can be. I think the stuff that's happened across all of our games with the work that Jared and the rest of the teams have done have really made a huge, meaningful difference in what we're doing. And we're going to continue to work on it, so that every time you have a chance to play a Blizzard game, you have a chance to have an awesome experience. Because we are all you. We are you. We are we are players. You are players. We all play these games together. So, do what you can to do your part, to do the reports, so that we can kind of improve on the technology and make it a great experience.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.